We're on, Josh.
What is up?
What's up, pal?
What's up, friend? I
Oh
was very, very loud in there. What is up? I went out with the fellas last night
yeah?
for some.
Strippers?
No, no strippers. I honestly
Oh.
don't remember the last time I went to a strip club. I went out with the fellas last night and had a good time. It was a lot of fun. We went out for wings and some beers and stuff. And we don't get together all that much anymore. And we talked about the usual stuff that you talk about, making fun of each other, talking about how we're all dummies and, this and that. Surprisingly, politics came up very little, almost not at all, which is interesting because in like a few weeks, we're going to get into the biggest election of our lifetime. Again, like the eighth one. Anyways, yeah, surprisingly, that didn't come up. But you know what did come up?
What's that?
And I'm not sure if you're living through this too, but what came up a lot is that all of us are in what I would call a friendship recession.
All right, so what's a friendship recession?
I didn't really understand or didn't really realize that this was going on a lot, but it's something that is starting to sort of creep its way into the mainstream. But basically, it is about how men, middle-aged men mostly, but like even young men too, just don't have friends anymore, or they don't have guys that they're close to, and they don't go out with their friends anymore. And my buddy Lance was telling me that he was throwing out these numbers. I don't know if these are bullshit or not, but they sounded pretty legitimate. But he said that in 1990, 55% of men had 6 or more friends, close friends.
Okay.
And that number is like 25% now. And I was like, oh. And he said that back in the day, it was like 2 or 3% of men said they had no close friends. This is like back in the 90s, early 90s. And he said that number is like 15% now. Like 15% of men have no close friends.
Like 0 close friends.
Yeah. And that's you, right?
Yeah.
You don't have any friends, Lou? No.
I have colleagues, acquaintances, coworkers, and clients.
Is that the way you see it?
Yeah.
You obviously have some close friends, but you know what? I would put myself into the category of, I don't know that I necessarily have 6, what I would categorize as close friends. I'd be close. I think I would be close because I definitely have several close friends. But I don't know if I would be in the category of having 6 or more close friends. Like I definitely have a lot of friends that I grew up with and we still see each other from time to time, but I don't know that we'd be considered close anymore because we hang out maybe 4 times a year.
So what would you consider to be a close friend? And maybe there's some criteria to determine that, because you just said we hang out a certain amount of time. So what determines a close friend for you?
I honestly think for men, the bar is so low nowadays that for me, I would say a close friend is somebody I see once a month.
Okay.
And somebody that I would talk to on at least 3-4 times a week, I'd say. So like say every second day. And talk to could be like shooting a text like, hey, you're stupid, you're ugly, like that kind of thing. That's what most of my conversations with my friends are.
Yeah, that's good friendship right there.
It's the best friendship. Making fun of each other is the absolute best friendship that exists. Yeah. Your texts with me are littered with them. Idiot.
Yeah, no, we're barely friends. So close friend is determined by how often you see them or how often you communicate with them.
Yeah, and I also think coming into play would have to be the fact that, what do you even talk about? Like, do you actually have serious conversations, or is it all just shit talking each other? Shit talking is an important part of male friendship, I think, personally. Yep. Like every close friend that I've ever had, I've shit talked them and made fun of them for pretty much everything that they do. It's just...
Yeah, you're kind of a dick.
Yeah, but it's part of like the dynamics of the friend groups that I've been in. I had a friend who almost died the other day.
Oh, really?
And yeah, like legit almost died the other day. And the conversation was like serious for maybe 6 sentences. Like 6 people were like, "Oh no, like terrible." And then it got into, "Dude, if you had died like that, we would have brought you back from the dead just to make fun of you." Like that's literally where the text went to, because that's just male friendship, baby. That's where it's at. And now we all just like make fun of him for this. I won't specifically say who, but
Can you say
that's
what
what. Yeah,
happened?
that's no, because everyone will know who I'm talking about. No, I can't get it. It was like it'd be a really bad way to die. And the irony is that there were some things that this friend had done in life that would sort of make this be like the universe. I don't want to say correcting itself, but like just bringing back karma, I guess.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, it's so far off topic, but
No, that's not far off topic. Like it's crazy that yeah, guys, we will make fun of each other for almost dying.
yes,
Right? Like in a horrible death. We will make fun of each other for that. That's kind of how our friendships are.
I thought we should get into, like, I don't know if you agree with the premise that I just laid out, but I do think there's a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with it, and I have actually looked into some of that data as well, especially around men's mental health and how friendships contribute to the decline and the gain of that. You know, having close friends actually is a really good thing for men's mental health, and the fact that we have a recession, as you called it, in men's mental health, a recession in men's friendships, that I think is a direct correlation or an addition to the epidemic we have on men's mental health.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about, and I did pull up an article for us to go through after about it, because it is apparently a big thing. My friends and I kind of talked about, like, why don't we get together more? Like, we do a couple big trips a year. We're actually, last night we were actually planning potentially going to Vegas because we're all turning 40. So we're talking about possibly doing that. But we kind of got into the meat of like, why don't we hang out? And we did come up with some reasons. I don't know how true these are, but these are sort of true for our own group. But like, the big one was we all obviously have personal struggles, things that we're dealing with in our lives. Most of us are still trying to establish our careers. We also live in an incredibly expensive city that that puts a sort of an additional stress as far as like going out and socializing often. Like it's hard to afford even to go out for like a couple of beers. Like I went out for a couple of beers last night and a plate of wings. It was $60.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
And it's wild.
And when you were younger, when you were younger, that wasn't really a big concern. Like,
no, gosh, no. When in 2008, I used to there was this neighborhood pub that we would go to that I actually reference in my book a bunch. We used to go, and it was $2 for a pound of wings and $2.25 for a Russell Cream Ale. So I would go out with $10 and get shit faced and full for $10.
Yeah.
And like people will be like, "Oh, but that was so long ago." It's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like factor of 6. And I would drink a lot back then. I'd probably have like 3 beers and a plate of wings, and it would literally be $10.
Yeah.
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 And now, yeah, I went out for a plate of wings and 3 beers, and it was $60.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a big factor, is you do have to really consider, like, am I spending my money wisely? Because we really do have to think about that right now. Like that $60 could go towards groceries and, clothes.
Yeah, not many, but a few, few groceries. Maybe a box of cereal and a loaf of bread. At these prices.
Well,
so that was
and bread, and you're good.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a big concern. The other ones for our group, and this might be different from other people's male groups, but like initiative, no one really wants to take the initiative to plan stuff. We're all just like completely content with laying back and being like, "Oh, well, if someone else plans it, then I'll go to it," kind of thing.
Do you think it's initiative, or is that what you guys talked about, that it's initiative? Because I almost feel
only
like
one guy who has the initiative to actually do it, and he's the biggest extrovert in our group.
Okay.
He's the one who kind of always is the planner of all these things, because he's the one that like really needs that like male camaraderie and like seeing people and hanging out. He's the one that always initiates these get-togethers.
I was going to ask you though, do you think it's always initiative, or like for me personally, I feel like I know how busy my friends are with their kids, with their business, with their work life, with their everything, that I almost feel like when I'm asking them, I'm like, I don't know, adding to that additional stress.
Yeah, so that is the part of initiation, right? Like he's not afraid to be the one to say like, let's go do this thing.
Mm.
And he does it in a way like he's done it so often. My buddy's been doing it since we were friends, when we were like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, like as long as I've known him, so 30 years or so. He's always been the one to do it. It's just kind of always been the dynamic of our friend group. So he's just really good at it. How did he put it? I forget exactly how he put it, but he almost said like, when I get to a four-way stop, I'm the first one who goes. You know how you get to a four-way stop? You ever done that? You get to a four-way stop and nobody wants to be the first one to go?
It's supposed to be whoever gets there first. Yeah.
Yeah, but even they don't go most of the time. Four-way stops
Yeah.
are brutal because everybody's like, "Oh, I'll just wait for that guy. That guy was slightly ahead of me, so I'll go." He said that he's not like that. He doesn't care. He'll go first. So he's
Yeah.
like always willing to be the one to sort of just initiate the thing to go. So
Mm.
that's always been the dynamic within our friend group, is him doing that, which is great because we need somebody to do that. Otherwise, no one would ever leave their basement or do anything. So
Yeah.
thank God we have him to kind of kick things off.
Yeah.
Um, I've been trying to work on that myself, being able to like be like, hey, let's do this thing. Like I do it with you on this show,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It's weird. I've always had a problem with being like, hey, you want to go do this thing? I don't know if it's like a
Probably
fear of rejection or what.
Well, probably that, or yeah, probably a bit of fear of rejection, or you're afraid of like putting them out, inconveniencing them in some way.
Yeah, I gotta get past that. It's definitely a problem. I think a lot of men have that problem.
It's a weird thing. I have it too, where I like, especially people that I know are going through some kind of, um, like I got a friend right now who's having a bit of a struggle with his business, and you know, the smart thing for him to do would be to kind of drop everything for a night and me and him go out for some beers or something, just like kick it, right?
Mm.
But I know I've asked him several times and he's always like, I'm trying to work on this pitch or trying to fix this thing in my business. So I've kind of stopped asking him, almost because like I feel almost like I'm burdening him
Yeah,
for him to come out. But at the same time, it's probably the best thing for him. So I should be getting that over and almost like forcing him to come out. Like,
yeah.
come out, let's talk about it. Because he's kind of struggling on his own right now.
It is weird because when we were younger, that was something we would always do. Like if your friend got dumped or whatever, you'd be like, "Let's go!" Like we're going out
Hmm.
partying, or like forget about her or whatever. But as we get into adulthood, we're so concerned with putting people out. I don't know. I agree. I don't know exactly what it is, but I definitely am of that mindset too. My big thing is like, what if they think it's weird that I do that? Like it's a Tuesday and I'm inviting someone to go for beers. What if they think that's weird?
Oh,
It's like an
really? Yeah.
internal. Yeah, I have that sometimes.
Hmm.
If I like we're not celebrating anything or there's no reason for it, I'm just like, yo, let's hang.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have this weird internal thing now because I can't explain it. I honestly don't know why, but it does exist inside of me where I'm just like, I got to move past it. I've tried to work on it and like just get over it and get better at doing that kind of thing. But I think a lot of men have that problem. I feel like I'm not even close to the only one. The other thing is like, what if they say no? Boy, I look stupid if I'm like, hey, want to go for beers? And they say no. I'll look like an idiot. But to
Hmm.
who? Like, I
Right.
have to
Right.
constantly tell, who cares?
Yeah.
But I feel like men have a mental block about that. Like, well, I've definitely said this to my wife before, where she's like, "Why don't you invite so and so out?" I'll be like, "But what if they say no?" She's like, "You're in the exact same position you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that happens, yeah,
Which is really like when you think about this show or getting into business or anything like that, you have those same blockages. It's like, I shouldn't reach out to this guest because we don't have enough numbers to reach out to that guest,
Yeah.
or they might say no to me. But what's the difference? The show just goes on. We don't have that guest either way.
No one
Right?
ever knows.
Yeah. I know you've gotten way better at that. So I guess it's just transferring that skill over to your friend group too.
The other thing that we talked about in our group of friends is none of us are particularly good at being vulnerable. Like, we do not have that many serious conversations with each other.
Yeah.
It's just never been the dynamic of our friend group. But like, you get one-on-one, people get a lot more vulnerable. And actually last night our conversation was more vulnerable than it usually is. I think that's just part of getting older. Like, some of us are 40 and some of us are turning 40, so it's a different dynamic. But like I said off the top, like, if you were vulnerable in my group of friends growing up, that was like, just, our friends were relentless with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That was fodder for getting a wedgie. Like,
oh my gosh.
you're going to be hung up by your underwear if you talk like that.
Yeah. What, are you bringing feelings to a party?
Yeah.
What is that?
This is guys being friends here. This isn't feelings. Like, what the?
A lot of like women won't understand that dynamic, but like, I had a friend one time in high school who brought tea to a party. Like, he stopped at Tim Hortons and got a tea. We made fun of him for 2 years about that, for bringing tea to a party. Like, we're
Okay.
relentless for 2 years. And all he did was bring a
Yeah.
cup of tea to a party.
Before we get into that article, I know you're heading there. I just want to define close friends a little bit more,
Sure.
because really all we've said is people that we hang out with more often and talk to more often, right?
Sure.
I think there's more to it. You talked about vulnerability with your friends. So I
Yes.
really think the absolute closest friends I have, and you would be in this boat, whether you call me a friend or not, are the ones that I can be most open with, most vulnerable with, kind of talk about struggles and problems, whether it be mental health, business, personal, family, whatever.
Mm.
The closest people to me, I can talk about those things. And I would say that I've got friends that I've had most of my life that I can't be overly vulnerable with. Um, and then I've got friends that I've had for a few years that I can be way more vulnerable with. And I consider those to be my closest friends.
Yeah, that makes total sense. My group of friends that I grew up with, you could do that in like a one-on-one setting, but don't ever bring it to the group. That was always the
Yeah.
dynamic of ours. But yeah, you could certainly be vulnerable. I think for men, one of the things that we really struggle with is being first to be vulnerable. Like, if you are
Mm.
friends with somebody, nobody wants to be the first to sort of like break the ice with that.
Yeah.
It's a weird, like, especially when you have new friends as a man, nobody wants to be the first man to be like, guys, I feel this way about, my feelings or whatever it might be. Men are weird like that.
It's interesting when you do that, like when you do break that ice, once they start revealing stuff about themselves, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that, or I didn't realize that we had this problem in common, or it's pretty amazing when you actually do break the seal, and you can find out a lot about someone that you've known forever that you had
Yeah.
no idea.
I don't have any evidence to back this up. This is completely anecdotal, but
That's
I
okay.
think
We're
that
not scientists here.
we grew up in a time where our fathers, and I don't mean like yours and mine specifically, although I would say my father probably fits the mold of this. Our fathers were very much not the type to express vulnerability. They were very much the quote unquote strong, silent type of man. And a lot of people conflate that or confuse strong and silent with masculinity, because that was always the way it was, right? Like, strong, silent, man, you're masculine. But
Hmm.
all that, like, being vulnerable and emotional and things like that, people say like, oh, that's like a feminine trait, which I think is bullshit. I think that all being vulnerable or being emotional about life is just being a human being. You're a person. So if somebody does, I mean, I make jokes about making fun of my friends, but if somebody comes to me with real, honest, raw, emotional feelings about something, I'm not going to make fun of them unless it's you. Then I'll make a joke and then I'll get serious with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think men really need to stop confusing or conflating this whole idea of that masculinity discourages expressing your emotions, because it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Showing vulnerability doesn't make you weak, just makes you a human being, and that's it. And some of the strongest people that I've ever met in my life are just the most honest.
Mm-hmm.
And being honest means telling people how you feel about shit. And I know I've had to move past this because my dad was very much a strong silent type, and most of the men I knew were. But I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
Can totally agree with that.
All right, so I pulled up an article from The Guardian. I don't know if we'll go through this whole thing because it's long, long, long. Guardian is not my favorite news source, but I think this article was well written, and I think it's certainly worth looking into. So the article
What
is,
is what is your favorite news source?
my own brain,
Yeah, I couldn't name one either.
my own eyes and sensibilities. That's my favorite news source.
Common Sense News.
South Park actually is my favorite news source.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so this article is written by Sam Wollaston. It was dated May 25th, 2023, so it's a little over a year old. And the article is called "We Don't Do Deep Emotional Discussions: Why Men Lose Their Friends and How They Can Make More."
Mm-hmm.
So the article starts off, a quarter of British men say they have no close mates. Well, I'm going to read this in a British accent, if that's cool. A quarter of men say that. Is that British?
Jesus.
A quarter of British men say they have no close mates. But even in middle age, where the friendship recession hits hardest, it's possible to buck the trend. I'm sure it's possible. So Gary Coleman, not Gary Coleman, the actor.
He's dead.
So Gary Coleman joined the army at the age of 16 and left when he was 40. He spent his 24 years as an infantry soldier in the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, serving in Northern Ireland, Kosovo, Iraq, and Cyprus, doing army things, including forming close friendships. There's such camaraderie, you build those bonds, he says. It's like a club, everyone going through the same kind of constraints and challenges. After the army, he settled in Darlington, County Durham, because his wife has family there. But his friends were dispersed around the country and abroad. They connected on social media, but that's not the same. Coleman missed the friendship. The issues of adjusting to Civvy Street are much discussed and documented. Coleman still dreams about most army nights, but this isn't about that. It's about men, middle age, and mates, or lack of mates, and making new ones, hopefully. So this is certainly, I'm of the same age of this guy because he's 40. He's been in the military for 24 years in the article. I'm almost 40. You're well over 40. So we're all kind of in the same sort of age range that's going through this. Now, continuing back to the article, a recent survey in the US found that men have fewer social ties than they used to, with just 27% saying they have at least 6 close friends. 27%. In 1990, this figure was 55%. I don't remember what I said off the top. I think I said 15, but obviously the article's higher. During that period, the number of men reporting no close friendships has risen from 3 to 15. In the UK, research by the Movember Foundation in 2018 found that 27% of men say they have no close friends at all. That's very high. They also found that friendships become less strong as men get older, with 22% of men aged 55 and over saying they never see their friends. It would seem there is, for men at least, a friendship recession. So, I mean, obviously we're reading from one article, but if you Google this, I did Google this last night, and there are piles and piles of articles about this friendship recession that men are going through. Chris Williamson, who hosts a show called Modern Wisdom, we've referenced him a few times on Second Story, but he has really brought this into more of a mainstream thing. It's becoming a big deal, a big problem.
Yeah.
And you can see from the article just exactly how big it is.
Yeah. Couple tidbits I took from that first paragraph when you were talking about the guy that was in the army there, Gary. He said that he tends to talk to his friends on social media, which isn't the same. I don't know if you do this with a lot of your friends, but is a lot of your conversations just sending Instagram reels and memes?
Yes.
And it's not real conversations. It's actually just sending kind of either jokes or, maybe inspirational stuff or whatever, but it's not even you talking, right? It's like you're just sending these like third party reels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other more successful, influential people talking, or really dumb people talking, and us sort of making fun of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not even really like we're not even having conversations anymore. We're just sending each other these observational things that we're seeing on social media.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's one thing that I took from there. The other thing was that he mentioned the camaraderie between him and his army friends. Is that what you call them? Army friends?
Mates.
Yeah, the camaraderie they had with them, they likened it to a club. And I think the article is probably going to get into this a little bit more, but just that terminology, a club. In a club, when you think about a club, it's all you have similar things that you're dealing with or thinking about, or like if you were in a skating club or a volleyball club or whatever, you're all doing the same thing. You all have a common thing that you're doing. And I find the people that I hang out with most or that I associate with most, we're in the same club, right? We're business owners or we're looking for personal growth. These are the things that I'm into right now. Personal growth, health, wellness, business growth. Those are the things that I'm looking at right now for myself. So those are the people that I'm surrounding myself with.
True. Well, it's like Tim said on the episode too. Like like when he was talking about close friends and how he was surprised by how many kind of didn't support what he was doing. And he's like, man, actually, we just found out that we grew up close to one another, and that's why we were friends. It really wasn't a close friendship. I think a lot of people figure that out. Yeah, I agree with your piece about clubs too. Like growing up, a lot of the friends that I had, we were friends because we had similar interests. We're in the same clubs. As I got older into, my 20s, and well, I couldn't play sports anymore. That's a big impact on me, not being able to play sports. They've really cracked down on militias too. So I used to be in a lot of militias. I can't do that. I'm kidding, of course. We would shoot guns and set off grenades, and can't do that anymore. So I've lost.
Send in the Mounties.
Yeah. Send them in. Send in the horses to step on us, and that was kind of the end of my friend groups. The club thing is I'm kidding, of course, but like the club thing is definitely a big part of it. As you get further away from things like athletics or whatever stuff that you're into, it's harder to sort of have that same camaraderie. I was going to mention video games. Back in the day, if you wanted to play video games with your friends, you had to actually go over to your friend's house and, hey, what's up? Let's play GoldenEye or WrestleMania 2000 or whatever it happened to be. Now we can just do it from the basement of our houses, and we love to do that.
I guess the other thing around clubs that I was thinking about is if someone doesn't fit the criteria of the club anymore, how easy it is to cast them out.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're not fitting like this mold of what I want as a friend or what is like helping me towards whatever I need as a human or person or like family life or whatever my goals are, then it seems very easy to just cast them out of that club.
That's part of, I think that plays into social media too, though. The fact that like you can move on from a person and fill their place in your life with somebody else, or in the case of men, just not, I guess.
I think that's what's happening is we cast them out of our club, and then it's like, oh, there's no one that really is fitting this exact mold that I'm wanting in the club anyways, right? So or we're not recruiting. We're not out there like recruiting for the club. So,
yeah, that's true.
it,
Oh,
I just want to touch on the other thing is I don't think women do this as often, and I'm generalizing, of course, but I just don't think women cast out of the club as often as men do.
I don't know the answer to that. Even generalizing, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, think about the women in your life compared to yourself. Do they try to fit their friends into, like, do they base their friendships around criteria that is pushing them forward in some way?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say all of them.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Some of the women in my life, their friendships are strictly based on convenience. This person
Hmm.
lives here. This person lives close by.
Yeah. They have the
Others,
same
I think
age
it just,
kids and the same activities or
yeah,
something
there's
like that.
definitely that too. Our husbands are friends. Like I've seen that
Hmm.
one before sometimes.
Right.
But I honestly, I think that happens more with men. I think as men get older, they sort of let extenuating circumstances dictate who's going to be their friends.
Okay. Meaning what?
My kid is friends with that dad's kid. I guess I'm
Hmm.
friends with the dad.
Yeah.
My wife is friends with that guy's wife. I guess I'm friends with that guy. My kid's in whatever sport, and so is that guy's kid. So I guess I see him at hockey. So that's my friend now.
Mm.
Versus like actually picking a friend based on who sort of fits your personality and is actually somebody who would be a good friend for you based on criteria that are not just strictly convenient.
Okay. Maybe I'm different in that way then, personally, because, and maybe that's why I don't have a ton of like close friends. It's because I don't just befriend the father in the my kids' sport group. I actually usually don't. I usually hate them, to be honest, like, for the most part.
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't really either for the most part. But I have seen it a lot. There's a lot of friendships that I've seen struck up where it's like, well, we're always together because our kids are always together. So I guess we're friends now.
Like the hockey
Uh,
parents. Yeah.
yeah, like
They
there's a
travel
lot of that.
together, all that stuff.
Yeah, my father completely avoided that whole thing.
Mm.
My dad, if anything, he was like you. My dad was like mortal enemies with the other hockey parents.
I wouldn't say I'm
Like,
mortal
I remember,
enemies, but I'm a curmudgeon for sure.
yeah, like, no, I mean, my dad, like, definitely made some, yeah, I remember years ago, there was this kid on my team who was really bad, and my dad was the coach, and his dad comes over with like 4 minutes left in a game, and we're down by one, and the dad had a stopwatch, and the dad was like, "Oh, my kid's only played 4 minutes of the third period." And
Mm.
my dad just turns to him and, like, as calmly and quietly as he could, looks at him and goes, "We're trying to win the game here." Like, that's all my dad said. Like, just, we're trying to win the game here. My dad wasn't trying to make friends. He's just trying to win the game. He's all about the
Yeah. Well,
W, baby.
how could you be friends with a fucking idiot that brings a stopwatch to the game? Like, you couldn't possibly be friends with that person.
Maybe. Hard to say. I don't know. But I do feel like there are a lot of friendships struck up that are strictly friendships of convenience. And I think a lot of childhood friendships for men are like that. It's like, oh, so and so grew up the street. We're friends.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. And as adults, men definitely do it too. I think men do it. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't want to generalize, but I feel like men do it more than women.
Do you?
Just pick friendships of convenience more than women do.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm speaking to, like, for myself and my wife and like the people I've seen. Like, my wife
Hmm.
doesn't have any friends of convenience
No,
that I can think of.
she's
No.
not friends with any of the cheer parents or anything like that.
Well, she is, but she was friends with them before cheer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's different.
All right. Back to the article. Uh, Dr. Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist and a top researcher into friends and friendship, says that though some might not want to believe it, men and women's friendships are different.
Oh,
Get canceled for saying something like that nowadays.
yeah. Yeah.
Women's friendships tend to be more personalized and dyadic. Dyadic? I don't know.
Dyadic. I don't know
Dyadic?
what it means, but
Dyadic?
I know how to say it.
I don't know what it means, and I don't know how to say it because I'm
A genius.
yeah. Dyadic. So who you are is the most important thing, whereas men's friendships are more clubby, kind of plays into what you were saying, and in some sense anonymous. It matters more what you are than who you are, he says.
Hmm.
In
That
other
kind of
words,
talks like that goes into what we were saying is like, uh, yeah, like that piece of convenience. Like they're into the same things as me, so it's easy for us to have that conversation. Plus, they're helping me propel forward in the club.
yeah, it kind of plays what I was saying too, like about men's relationships being more of convenience than anything else.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the article. In other words, do you belong to my club? If you do, that qualifies you to be my friend. And anybody who ticks the box can be substituted in if you don't turn up or you go off to Thailand forever or whatever. A lot of men's friendships seem to be built around activities. So conversation is quite unimportant and is largely designed to trigger laughter as much as anything else. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Like out of the article back to me. I'm
Yeah.
like,
It's
fucking
ticking
failing to read
everything,
this
eh?
article. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Men don't do deep emotional discussions about friendship. I don't think I've really talked much to my friends about being friends,
No.
like ever, really. All right, back to the article. It says, chaps, I'm afraid we're simple, shallow creatures. It doesn't really matter who we make friends with, but it's easier to do so if they also like golf or football or canoeing or whatever it is. And there's more
Mhm.
bad news from Dunbar because men are inherently socially lazy when they start to lose friendships. They find it more difficult to recreate them. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
spot
know,
on.
the biggest trouble I have is making friends with people that are totally into sports. Cause I just don't follow hockey and all that stuff, right? I don't know the stats and all these things. And I don't watch the game. So if the conversation starts with, "Oh, did you see the game on Thursday?" I'm like, this friendship's not going to last. But it's strange because like you're into all that stuff. You are into sports and stats and all that kind of stuff. But I think you and I share so many other common things that we can just get past that, and we don't have to just be on this one topic, you know. But there is people like that. That's like we're a one topic, one subject people, and that's it. And if you're not into it, you're not in my club.
So true. This will sound weird because I write about hockey for a living, or it's one of my livings. I'll talk about hockey. Obviously, I love the game. I love all of it. I love the theater of it. But I can't talk about it for hours the way other people can. I can use it as like a lead-in conversation, talk about it for like, 20 minutes with somebody, but then I just want to talk about more like things that are more interesting to me. The
Mm-hmm.
world, personal development, what I see for the future, ideas, philosophy. I just find that stuff more interesting. And I don't know if it's just getting older or just it's kind of broadening my horizons, but I can't sit and talk about sports the way I used to, or I can't just sit and talk about movies the way I used to. That used to be the thing you and I would talk about was movies.
Yep.
I just can't anymore. I just, I still enjoy it for a few minutes. Even politics. I used to love talking about politics. I can't
Mm-hmm.
anymore. I just find it so uninteresting.
Yep.
And I find the people that, this is going to sound really horrible. I find the people that are obsessed with it, like, I find it to be largely unimpressive. Like the rest of like the rest of the things that they care about, it's very surface, sort of like just surface area, um, things that are sort of void of a lot of deep thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that I'm like an intelligent guy and I'm above them. I like to talk about ideas. I'm at a point in my life where I like the idea of ideas, and that's what I like. I enjoy
Yeah.
talking about. There's not a lot of ideas in sports. I mean, maybe if somebody wants to talk about like how to improve a power play, that'd be cool. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's ideas. It's still about sports, but it's ideas.
Yeah.
So,
Here's some rule changes we could make. Yeah.
ooh, that would be an interesting conversation. Yeah, I'd be down
Yeah.
for that one.
You mentioned like maybe it's because I'm getting older. I think as we get older and have kids and have in our cases multiple jobs and things
Mhm.
like that, it we have a finite amount of time. We have a finite amount of time left in this world, and we also have finite amount of time in our day because we're busy. So you really, I don't know, I find when I'm with friends, I want to talk about bigger things, bigger ideas, like things that are something that I'm going to be thinking about tomorrow, things that I'm going to be using to improve myself. I don't want to just talk about the hockey game, or I like touching on some of those things like a TV show. Like I like having a conversation about a TV show, but I don't want it to be like an hour long conversation about a TV show. Like let's talk about TV show, and then like let's talk about TV show we want to make, you know?
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. That's, I guess my thought is like we just have this finite amount of time. So I think part of how we structure our friendships and everything is around that time.
Last night when I sat down with my friends, I sort of recalled all the other times that we would sit down as we were in our 30s and getting to our mid 30s. A lot of the conversation in the past would always be about good times growing up, good times in college, fun we had, like ridiculous debauchery, crazy things that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a shift last night. And I never noticed it before, even though I've hung out with this group of friends a few times. But I noticed a real shift last night in the conversation. A lot of it was about stuff that we're working on, because in my group of friends, everybody that was there is working on something.
That's good.
So Mark, who's been a guest on this show.
Okay.
Mark
he
was
there
there
last night. Cool.
talking about training fighters, different fighters that he's working with, excited about, all the different types he's working with and who he's training and what they're doing. That was his development journey. I was obviously talking about this show and writing and the different personal development things we have going on. Another one of our friends just started a YouTube series. He
Wow.
was excited about that and how he's, learning to edit and learning how to do sound design and animation and all this stuff. These were all exciting things that were going on. And we just went around the table and this is what the conversation was. Very different from the past where all we would do is reminisce about the dumb shit we did when we were kids. None of that came up. And we didn't really talk about sports or movies. All of that was kind of out the window. It was all about like, what do you got going on? What's going on for the future? What's going on with your kids? Like, it was very different. And it was cool. It was a lot less shallow, I suppose. Well, kind of what the article's talking about.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
In our late teens and 20s, no problem. We just go out and make new friends. The social world is built around our demands. In our 30s and into our 40s, we might make friends at the school gate with the parents of our children's pals. After that, it gets harder, especially if you get divorced and immediately lose at least half your friends. At that stage, you're running out of energy and motivation. It's an effort to get up and go out to places that you don't know. Dyslexia. To places you don't know people and don't know what people talk about anymore. If you're not a complete extrovert, there's a resistance to putting yourself in that awkward situation. So networks contract, says Dunbar. That matters because, he says, and studies have shown, the single biggest predictor of our psychological health and well-being, our physical health and well-being, and even how much longer we're going to live is the number of close friendships and family relationships that we have.
Kind of what we were just talking about with time frame, right?
The fact that he says if you're not a complete extrovert, there's resistance to getting up and going out, so your networks contract. That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not an extrovert, if you're the type of person who's much more comfortable sort of being alone or being in a small group, when you get older, you have less opportunities. And like when your kids grow up, those opportunities are gone. You really have nothing. So at that point, what do you even do?
Yeah.
I didn't give you a little anecdote from like when I was younger, but I don't know if you played golf all that often when you were younger. I know you have played golf, but
a little bit, but I was never, it was more just to drink and drive a golf cart around. Yeah.
Yeah. To drive.
Drink and
legally.
drive. Drink and drive legally. Yeah.
Yeah. Good times. That's the only reason anyone play golf. I'm kidding. One of the things I used to notice when I would go to the golf course this is specifically true if you played on weekends, is there would always be a couple of guys by themselves at the golf course.
Mm.
And I always found that to be weird. Like, what do you
Hmm.
not got any friends, weirdo? Like, why are you here alone? That was always something that would bear in mind. I was like late teens, early 20s, and I would always just, I don't want to get paired up with that weirdo. He's got no friends.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember saying that to my friends, being like, "What a weird guy. He's got no. How do you have no friends, loser?"
Loner. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were always late 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s,
Hmm.
and I never really got it, but now I do. Having looked at this thing, like if you let's just say you had to move for a job. You go
Hmm.
to a completely new city, your kids are growing up. Now you're in, I don't know, Edmonton, Alberta. Now you got to go try to meet new friends. You have no social connections through your kids. All you have is like your wife. You got to go find a club. Where
Hmm.
do you go meet friends?
Yeah, you're not really out clubbing at our age, so.
Well, I meant like clubs like a dart club. I didn't
Oh,
mean
okay.
like 50 Cent in the club.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and something like golf, like it's, they're out playing by themselves, but I guess the hope is that they're getting good enough at golf and then they can meet someone in the clubhouse, right? And be
And
like,
join a golf
hey,
team.
yeah, and just be like, hey, I shot this. Like they've got a starting point, right, to create that friendship.
Yeah. Here's the thing though, if you get good at golf, no one wants to be your friend
That's true.
because
Yeah.
they'll
I
always feel bad unless you're going to play on their golf team.
Anytime like someone that I know is good at golf says, "Hey, you want to come out? Do you play golf?" I'm like, "Nope." But if some of my friends or something that I know are terrible and they're like, "Hey, you want to play golf?" I'm like, "Sure. Yeah, I'll come out and play golf with you." Yeah.
Don't despair.
Okay.
It might get harder, but it's not impossible. We asked readers, men in middle age, to tell us about making new friends. Sean McBride Stewart first met his bestie Lewis at the school gate 10 years ago when they were both in their mid 40s. But it was during the pandemic that things picked up. They started exercising together, throwing medicine balls at each other in the park. Lockdown was hard. This was a nice thing to come out of it, McBride Stewart tells me. He says it helped that they were both extroverts because they did talk and they bonded over common ground, like being raised Catholic, doing PhDs in middle age, and being immigrants in Edinburgh. Sean is from New Zealand, Lewis from Cape Verde via Portugal. In some ways, being somewhere you didn't grow up makes it easier. If you come here as an adult, it might not be as easy to make friends with the people already here, says McBride Stewart. But you would with people who have made the same life choice as you, which is to move to a city and fall in love with it. He said he learned a lot about his friend, about Portuguese colonial history, about Cape Verde, and about what it's like for him being black and living in Portugal and here, all the microaggressions that happened to him.
Hmm. So what I took from that is he was happy that he was learning something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
he he's choosing he's happy that he made a friend, like someone that he can talk with, but he actually really enjoys the conversation and he's actually getting something out of it.
Yeah. It's not like shallow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not shallow, which is what a lot of these guys seem more like they're intellectuals. They also seem like they're quite wealthy based
Mm-hmm.
on no poor person says microaggressions first off because they got to worry about things like affording groceries, and they're like, I got bigger problems than whether someone said mean stuff. Like, I'm just worrying about filling the fridge with food. That seems am I wrong in saying that? I think that's true.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So,
I also think it's easier for, like, if you look at these people in this article, both wealthy men by the sounds of it, I think it's easier for wealthy people to find friends. I'm basing that on nothing. But I think I'll just use my own experience, right? The past couple years, my focus has been increasing my income. Like 2 years ago, you and I had a meeting and we sat down. Do you remember what I said to you?
you
I
said I
said to you,
need to make a certain amount more a year.
I said to
That
you, I
one?
want to make well, that was the first of a couple conversations like that. First one was I said to you, I want to make $1,000 more a month. I said I'd feel like I'd be
Mhm.
able to do some investing and pay some stuff off. I'm like, I want to make 1,000 more a month. And then like a year later, I was like, now I want to double my income. Both times you laughed. You're like, okay. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's a really stupid thing to say.
I don't think I
Um,
laughed.
the the second one you did, the first one you did. You're like, oh, how are you going to do that? And I was like,
No, the
when I
first
said
one
the
I said,
thousand,
go out, make $1,000 more. That's not that hard.
that is what you said. But you said you didn't
Yeah.
say it in such nice terms. You said, well, what are you waiting
I,
for? Go make it.
yeah. Fucking
And then
idiot.
and
Something
then
like
you were
that.
like, how? And then you were like, how are you going to make it? And I was like, I don't fucking know. And then I figured it
And
out.
then we
This,
started talking about ways to do that. Yeah.
yes. And then the second time when I said I want to double my income, it was a very similar conversation where you're like, so go double it. And you're like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, I don't fucking know. The point of this is, and there is a point, but in
Okay.
both of those conversations, I was not pleased with where I was financially. So I wasn't thinking about, oh boy, I need to make some friends or I need to go see my friends. I was thinking, I got to make more money. And I also was
Mhm.
not at a point where I was happy with my career. So I was thinking, I got to work on things to make my career better. So this is what I mean by people who are not doing as well financially. I don't think they have a space in their life to carve out friendship hunting or like working on friendships. I just don't think they have the capacity for it in the world that we live in because they are worried about like, well, I'd like to be able to feed the kids and, not lose the house this year versus somebody who's wealthy. I mean, they can have their own problems too. Obviously, money doesn't solve everything, but I think those parts of life are much more taken care of that they can carve out room to do these other things. Again, I'm
Yeah.
generalizing
Sure.
but I just noticed the people that I know that have that do have money, they got way more of a social life than the people who don't.
Well, they're traveling, they're hanging out with other people that have a lot of money and have the time to socialize and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they have kids, they're getting a babysitter and going out. Whereas if
Yeah.
you're poor or you're really concerned about living paycheck to paycheck, you're not setting aside $100 to pay a babysitter for the night so you can go to the movies or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's just
spending
not it.
spending $60 on chicken wings and beers, nothing, right? Like it's drop in the bucket.
Well, to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like imagine if I had to go out and get a babysitter and then pay 60. Whoa, Jesus. Be
Yeah.
broke. Yeah, that would be tough.
It's going to stop you because, like, obviously, all these examples are the same. It's like we joined some kind of activity that puts us together, and that's how I find friends.
Yeah.
Right. So, is there like a conclusion or some kind of thing in this article where they talk about um, what we should do otherwise, or is that
Other
just the
than
way it
joining a
is?
club.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Is like we have friends that are in our club, and
Do you want to hear the last paragraph?
yeah,
Here's the last two paragraphs. So Coleman, who's a character they introduce in the article, thinks friends are more important than ever in middle age. He's 54 now. As well as being about having a laugh, he also seeks support. We always have a little nod to each other, like this guy's going to put on a happy face, but there's stuff going on. 10 or 15 years ago, it wouldn't have crossed my mind, but now you're sort of like, he's having a bit of a hard time, so let's look after him. Some scooter clubs have a bad name. Theirs is open and friendly. It doesn't matter what the football team they support. They welcome people from all over the country, women too. And that's basically how the article ends.
okay,
So, do they have a solution to this? No.
okay,
They're just basically shining a light on the issue that exists. And to be honest with you, I went through a lot of these articles. Most of them are not coming up with solution. They are all just shining a light on a problem that I don't think anybody has the answers for.
okay.
I don't know that we do either. But so if you look at Vox has a whole thing. I'm not going to get into the article, but they do have some images that are kind of interesting. Maybe we'll pepper these into some of these quotes, but where was the one I wanted? So here's one. Men are less likely than women to share their personal feelings with and receive emotional support from friends. 41% of women reported receiving emotional support from a friend in the last week, whereas 21% of men said that.
Mm-hmm.
48% of women shared their personal feelings with a friend in the last week, whereas 30% of men did.
Yeah.
30. So big discrepancy. So that was one thing I wanted to point out. 49% of women are likely to tell their friends that they love them and have told them in the last week. 25% of men have done it. I'm actually
Yeah.
honestly surprised it's that high for men.
I just went out for a friend's birthday. This is a friend that I've had for 39 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And we always tell each other we love each other. And it's funny because my wife was actually making fun of me for that the other day.
Yeah.
But I think that's her way of saying, like, I think it's cool that, like, I think it's neat that you guys do that. But
Yeah.
she was telling someone else, she's like, yeah, when they get together, they're always laughing, joking, but then it's always like, I love you, right? And it is weird for men to do that. Like, it's hard for men to do that for some reason.
Yeah.
I always
Very
feel
hard.
weird even saying it to him, like someone that I've said it for years. I still feel weird. Like, I have to work myself up to say it.
Yeah, I think I have. I never say it to you because I don't feel it, but
I love you, man.
I love you too, man. There we go.
See how hard that was?
It was.
You didn't even say the word right. You were like, I love you too, man.
I grinded my teeth through it. It was icky. I do have a friend that him and I have always said it for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like one, and he's one of the people I would consider to be my closest friends. Like, definitely up there. It's weird, yeah. Men don't. I'm sure we feel it for each other, but we don't express it. But we don't express a lot of things for each other.
No.
Yeah.
I find myself as I'm getting older, though, that I do want to be more expressive and more emotive, and I genuinely want to help my friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when they're going through something, I want to be there for them. Not I'm not always there just due to circumstance, but I do find myself wanting, if there's a piece of advice I can give, I want to give it.
That's good. I think it's good that it's terrible that this is happening, and it's pretty clear that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Even just in our, like, we see it in the people we know and ourselves, but just as in society as a whole, we certainly see it as well. You can look at suicide and loneliness numbers as well. Like, male suicide rates are extremely high.
Specifically between the ages 30 and 65, like, we're the highest. That age group is the highest of any suicides.
Like, this is a real epidemic that's going on. Like, the fact that men are killing themselves in these types of numbers is pretty horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, society as a whole doesn't really seem to care. But to be honest, I'm not that surprised. Men have always sort of been disposable, I guess. Like, just dating back to wars, like, it was always historically men who would go die. Even
Mm-hmm.
going back to, like, caveman time, it was like, no, you're going to go out and wrestle the tiger for the food. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, back in
Yeah.
caveman era. Yeah, it's just we've always been sort of disposable, and we still very much are. Like, if you look at men killed in the workplace, it's substantially higher than any other gender. It's just kind of the
Yeah.
way it is, and we very much do it to ourselves. I'm not blaming it on, like, society or women. We do it to ourselves. We just need to take control of this problem as men and, like, just figure it out. And I
Yeah.
don't know what the answers are. I don't have them. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask, but I know I'm trying to take control of it in my own life and, like, forge close relationships with people and do the things that this article talked about that people aren't doing. Have
Mm-hmm.
deeper conversations, have deeper relationships, more meaningful, not just hanging out with people because they play golf or what have you. But yeah, like, even Go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, even like, we went on a trip. I don't know, it was about a year and a half ago, but I noticed that like a couple of my friends, whenever we were hanging out around the house that we were staying at, they'd wear their headphones. And I was just like,
Hmm.
dude, like we don't ever see each other, and you're just walking around like the house with your headphones on. It's
Oh
weird.
wow.
Yeah,
Same with the phones, right? The phones, like pulling out the phones and just like I don't know
yeah,
what we're always looking at, but it's usually nothing, right? Like it's usually social media bullshit. Hey, check out this meme, check out this reel. Look at this video. I don't know.
yeah.
It's not meaningful stuff, that's for sure.
No, and I did really notice a shift last night with my friends that nobody pulled out their phone.
That's
I
great.
think they're all kind of feeling it.
Yeah.
Like no one pulled out their phone. I don't recall anybody having their phone out actually. Um, and it was just a different vibe altogether, which is good because I think a lot of my buddies are feeling similar to me in that regard, and maybe similar to a lot of men in society. But I think the light being shined on this, it is going to change. I
Mhm.
don't think this is going to continue on for another decade. Um, I hope I'm right about that. I don't know. I think
Hopefully.
we should end with this last little quote from Vox.
Okay.
So they have this picture, and it says, the very qualities that we socialize men to value are the same ones that make it hard for them to form lasting connections. Maybe it's time to rethink what it means to be a good man for their sake and for society's.
Nice.
I can't argue with that quote.
No.
That's what you and I are doing. That's what this whole show is.
Yeah. I think one thing though, like we're talking about numbers, right? Where it's like men have less friends.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a bad thing? Um and what I mean by that is it a bad thing that we're not just settling for the people that we're not compatible with? Like part of what you and I have been doing is actually in some ways cutting out the people in our lives that are, or at least I am anyways, cutting out some of the people in my life that aren't helping me with my personal growth, that are almost like hindering it a bit. So I don't know if that attributes in any way to the lower numbers, but just I'm flipping it on its head here and asking you, is that a bad thing?
If that were the case, that people were doing it for that reason, I don't think that would be a bad thing. But I don't think that they are. And
Okay.
I'll tell you the reason I don't think that they are is because so many people that I know or that I come across in life are very happy, not very happy, but they're content to just murder their time. And I'm being somewhat hyperbolic here, but I'm using the expression murdering your time instead of killing time, because so
Mm.
many people that I know, that's what they do in their free time. They'll just sit and do nothing, scroll on their phone, watch TV. They're just killing time till it's time to go to bed, killing time till I got to go to work, just killing time till my lunch break's over. So they're completely content to like kill their time. I don't think they're cutting people out of their life because those people are like a waste of their time or anything like that. That's not to say that there aren't some people. I definitely think that people like you and I who are on this journey, I don't know what the hell this journey is that we're on, what we're trying to do. I call it a personal development journey because that's what I think it is, but I don't even know if that's what it is. Just a journey to be better, be the best version of ourselves. I've stopped murdering my time because I realized that my time, I mean, outside of my wife and my family, my time is the most valuable thing that I have. And I'm not going to be in a position where I ever have to kill time. I'll always, even if I do have to like wait around, I try to put some value to that time and like make it worthwhile. So yeah, and this is you too. I know you've cut people out of your life that brought you down or were not necessarily a good use of your time. So you and I are definitely in that boat, and there's, I'm sure, lots of other people like that. But I think for most people, they don't look at it like that because there's, like I say, they're more than happy to just murder their own time. So I don't think a friend being like wasteful of their time is that big of a concern for them.
Yeah. Just a matter of circumstance.
A lot of friendship is circumstance, as the article alludes to, especially for men. Not so much for women, but yeah.
Cool.
I don't really know how to end this other than
I do.
say men,
go ahead.
Men have fewer friends. It's probably harming their health. At least the data seems to show that. Whether more friends is the fix for that, I don't know. Time will tell.
I think probably more meaningful, deeper relationships is what is needed.
I agree. Now
All right.
fuck off and get off my computer.